or when it goes off, suddenly they stop hear words
Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Punatu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. Together we'll chant Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verses 21 to 30.
आदित्यानामहं विष्णुः ज्योतिषां रविरंशुमान् मरीचिर्मरुतामस्मि आदित्यानामहं विष्णुः ज्योतिषां रविरंशुमान् मरीचिर्मरुतामस्मि नक्षत्राणामहं शशि वेदानां सामवेदोऽस्मि देवानामस्मि वासवः इन्द्रियाणां मनश्चास्मि भूतानामस्मि चेतना रुद्राणां शङ्करश्चास्मि वृत्तेषो यक्षरक्षसां वसूनां पावकश्चास्मि मेरुः शिखरिणामहम् पुरोधसां च मुख्यं मां विद्धि पार्थ बृहस्पतिम् सेनानीनामहं स्कन्दः सरसामस्मि सागरः महर्षीणां भृगुरहम् गिरामस्म्येकमक्षरम् यज्ञानां जपयज्ञोऽस्मि स्थावराणां हिमालयः अश्वत्थः सर्ववृक्षाणां देवर्षीणां च नारदः गन्धर्वाणां चित्ररथः सिद्धानां कपिलो मुनिः उच्चैश्रवसमश्वानां विद्धि माममृतोद्भवम् ऐरावतं गजेन्द्राणां नराणां च नराधिपम् आयुधानामहं वज्रं धेनूनामस्मि कामधुक् प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः सर्पाणामस्मि वासुकिः अनन्तश्चास्मि नागानां वरुणो यादसामहम् पितॄणामर्यमा चास्मि यमः संयमतामहम् प्रह्लादश्चास्मि दैत्यानां कालः कलयतामहम् मृगाणां च मृगेन्द्रोऽहम् वैनतेयश्च पक्षिणाम्
The Lord is telling us how He is the best, the noblest, the greatest of all things. In other words, He is the essence of everything. The Lord is not divorced from the world. It is a very important aspect of our studies to know that the world that we meet is itself divine. There is no dichotomy in the worship of the Lord in the world. There is no dichotomy. There is no spiritual path and material path. No such thing. The path, whatever you do is what you do. The way you do it is different. So you go to business, you go to work, you go to do your business. Is that a materialistic activity? Not according to Vedanta. It is as much a divine activity as going to the temple or the church or the mosque. There is no difference. You could go to your business with the intention of, with demands. You can go to the temple or the church or the mosque with demands. You can go to business with the intent of service. You can go to the temple with the intent of service. What are you doing is the question. There's no two different things to do. There is a different attitude in doing it. So what is the spiritual attitude? The spiritual attitude is the ability, the desire, the consciousness of the fact that everything you're transacting with is the Lord, not different from the Lord, is the Lord. When you are in hospital, you are in the presence of the Lord as much as when you are in a temple. Every aspect of life is covered by the divinity. So in everything we do, the sense of worship has to always be there. Sense of grandeur of what we're doing is always to be there. So that's what he's trying to say. He's showing us the best of everything to indicate that the highest, the best, the greatest, the noblest, the most essential aspect of everything. Suppose I say, I am ghee in milk, for instance. What does it mean? The most essential aspect of the milk is me. The greatest, the best part of the milk is me. That doesn't mean you see only the ghee and that is God and everything else isn't. That's not what it means. It means that the very essence of everything is that ultimate reality. So now he's trying to inspire us with that idea in various things, he said, of Vedas and Samaveda. Samaveda is considered to be the best of the Vedas because, so the oldest Veda is the Rig Veda. And the other Vedas are largely repetitions of it. The Rig Veda has the oldest mantras, and the Yajur Veda has all the sacrifices that you use these mantras with. And the Samaveda has got the music associated with the chants. And these were the traditional Vedas. And then Atharva Veda, which is considered the young boy, the young fellow, he is a sort of different Veda because it's more to do with common folk and their problems, not the massive Vedic rituals and deities and all of that. It's common folk. Like if you have fever, what are you supposed to do? Or your husband has another wife, what do you want to do? So things like that, very, very, it deals with common man's problems, as it were. How do you take care of your cattle? Things like that. And so of these four Vedas, Samaveda is considered to be the best because it has all the traditional, the oldest chants from the Rig Veda, which are considered the authentic chants, and they are set to music. So it's considered to be the most melodious of all the Vedas. Of gods, I'm Vasava. Vasava is another name for Indra. So I am the lord of the gods, I'm Indra. Of senses, I am the mind. Indriyani Manaha. Indriyanam Manaha. Among the Indriyas, I am the Manaha. Why? Because the Indriyas lose their power when the Mana is not there. When your mind is not there, what powers do your senses have? For instance, if your mind has no interest in a cheesecake, then what power do your senses have of taking you there? So the power that the senses get is energized by the mind. If the mind is not there, senses are powerless. Of living beings, I am conscious. What is it that makes you a living being? It is that consciousness. What is the one common thing in all living beings? It is consciousness. What is the most necessary thing in a being to be alive? What is that most necessary thing? You can be a dumb person, you can be whatever, you can be a cold person, absolutely feelingless, you can be dumb in the sense you have no brains whatsoever, you can be devoid of any feelings, you can be physically challenged, but you're alive. And what makes it so that you're alive is the consciousness. So an amoeba is alive. What makes it alive? It's conscious. It's conscious of its environment. A cockroach, a mosquito, a tiger, a lion. What makes them alive? It's the fact of consciousness. So what is the most essential thing of a living being? Consciousness. Awareness. When you're aware, you're alive. Right? You're not. So he's given various things, whichever one inspires you with the thought of the Lord, you can use that. Verse 23. Rudranam Shankaraschasmi Vittesho Yaksharakshasam Vasunam Pavakaschasmi Merushikarinamaham Rudranam Shankaraschasmi Vittesho Yaksharakshasam Vasunam Pavakaschasmi Merushikarinamaham. Rudranam Shankaraha Asmi. I am among the Rudras, Shankara. Shankara, the Lord of Destruction, is the head of the Rudras. Rudras are the 11 Rudras. They are the powers of destruction, immense powers of destruction are there in this world. There is the earthquake and the tsunami. Pompeii was such a city at one point, right? A bustling city with so many people, so much running around. It was a flourishing urban center of its time. And then what? One day a volcano erupts, the whole city is gone. Just disappeared like that. Or Jerash. Jerash is considered to be the Pompeii of the East. Massive city. You can imagine all the people there. The Romans had taken over the city. And earthquake going on. Or in more recent history, Jerash is known as the Pompeii of the East. And then in more recent times, and in our living memory at least, remember the Latur earthquake? There are these immense powers of destruction that exist in the world. A landslide on the mountain. Remember? There was recently a landslide and then none of the yatris could go. Immense powers of destruction. Most of the time they stay quiet. And we believe that all is well. We don't realize that these powers exist. Powers exist means the nature of this world is destruction takes place. Suddenly, almost for no rhyme or reason. Imagine if you just happen to be in Japan and then the tsunami hits. Can you do? All the forest fires that are taking place in California. All this, so much destruction this Earth is capable of doing. Imagine the solar flares, they just have to reach Earth. You can do anything to us. You're almost like helpless little tiny creatures in the face of this massive destruction. So they were represented in earlier times as the Rudras, the forces of destruction. And their head was Shankara, Mahadev, Shiva, who was their Lord. He is the Lord of destruction. No? So he says, among all the destructive powers in this world, I am Shiva, their Lord. I am the king of destruction. Vitteshaha Yaksharakshasam. Among the Yakshas, I am Vittesha. Vittesha is Kubera. So among the Kuberas, among the Yakshas are supposed to be Yakshas and Rakshasas are supposed to be like these ugly creatures. And they have immense power, of course. So among the Yakshas and the Rakshasas, I am Vittesha. Vittesha is Kubera. You know the story of Kubera, right? That Brahma granted him a boon to be the Lord of all wealth. So he's the Lord of all wealth. Now you may wonder, how is this Kubera also Lord of wealth and Lakshmi is also Lord of wealth? Now who is the Lord of wealth? Is it Kubera or is it Lakshmi? So it's a very, very interesting construct because you see these are all allegorical symbolism. So when you talk of Lakshmi, okay, you automatically understand that this is a deity of worship. So we pursue Lakshmi. Kubera, on the other hand, is not a deity of worship. So Lakshmi is the wealth that comes to you because of your worship of Vishnu. You don't chase Lakshmi directly, you worship Vishnu, Lakshmi gets added on to. It is a deity of worship. There's a whole culture of worshipping that. I mean, there's a divinity associated with that. But with Vittesha or Kubera, Kubera is a brother of our friend Ravana, one of his brothers. A stepbrother, of course, but brother of Ravana. Now, this Kubera has got all the wealth of the world, but he is represented as a short, dwarfish, 8 protruding teeth. Look at how he's, how is Lakshmi? She's this beautiful, gorgeous lady of great stature and all. And what is Kubera? He's a dwarf. He's a fat fellow. He's got a pot belly. He's got 8 protruding teeth. Almost like a visual representation of the 2 kinds of wealth. And these 2 kinds of wealth are created because of what? What do you think there are? Why would they divide wealth into these 2 categories? What do you think is the division?
The way that you got it, what
way? Your attitude in that wealth. Correct. The way that you got it, what are you doing with it? Your whole attitude makes one wealth and makes the other money. Even in English you say that, no? Wealthy is different from money. You understand this difference. And this is the difference that he tries to bring about. However, these moneyed people, they have a lot of money, but they don't have the respect. And the wealthy people, they have a lot of money too, but they have the respect as well. And what makes for that difference is just a mental attitude. How important do you consider that wealth? How do you pursue that wealth? How do you look after that wealth? How do you treat other people who don't have that wealth or do have that wealth? The whole lot of it makes for the difference between Lakshmi and Kubera. So you have to decide, you want to follow the path of Lakshmi or you want to follow the path of Kubera. It's very interesting, even as we do the university work, I'm sure you all understand that unless we get the money, there is no way that university is going to come up. But is it also equally clear that with just the money, the university will not come? It takes the dedication of the people to make something worthy of existence. It doesn't come just by throwing money. And yet without money, it can't be done. So there is this thing in this world that money is a very important thing. You can't function without it. But just because it's a very important thing doesn't mean it's the only thing. Lots can be done with money and lots can be done without money. For a lot of things, money is required. But money cannot do a lot of things also. And if you're able to understand this, you're able to give money its right value. Otherwise, people say, oh my God, I can't do fundraising. I said, I can't touch money. It's horrible. What do you mean you can't touch money? What's that even supposed to mean? How are you supposed to live without it? So there is no revulsion towards money and there is no attraction towards money. You just are able to give money its right value. And you would do that if you can intellectually conceive these 2 things, Lakshmi and Vittesha, Kubera, whatever name you're more familiar with. What is that right attitude? It's the attitude of being able to give it the right value, no more, no less. So, people who run down money won't work, my friend. And if you elevate money, then you can become Kubera. How are you going to strike that balance for yourself in your life? So, not talking of all that now. This was all obiter dicta. But what he is talking about is, amongst the moneyed, I am the king of money. Amongst the Rakshasas and Yakshas, I am Kubera. Because what is the attitude of the Rakshasas and the Yakshas? What makes you a Rakshasa or a Yaksha? What makes you that?
your intention?
Your
Yeah.
vices.
What intention? Yeah, correct. Intention. What intention?
Evil or selfish?
Yeah, selfish intention. So the demands. So you have so many demands, that's why you're a Rakshasa or a Yaksha. Now this Yaksha has got all the money to fulfill those demands. So that's why he's saying, amongst the Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am Kubera. I have the money to fulfill all the multifarious demands I am making. Okay, clear? Yakshas and Rakshasas with Tesha. Okay, did somebody want to say something? I saw somebody being unmuted.
Janviji, I wanted to check. Why would he then not say that I am Lakshmi and he would say Kubera? Because he is referring to the Yakshas.
Yeah.
And I'm the best in the Yakshas that way. Okay, that's the only reason.
Ankiji, this is Kalyan. Just one question. Every time you say that the manifestation is both good and bad, so that point about being manifested in the ugly, the destructive, the fiery, the so-called bad, how does one reconcile that being Lord whom we want to realize? That I'm not quite
The
convinced.
Lord we want to realize is all pervading, right? So how can you divide him from anything? The truth has to be everywhere, or it's not the truth. The reality has to be everywhere, otherwise how is it real? The very definition of reality is that it must pervade past, present, and future. If it is not there in the past, present, and future, how can you call it reality? So that means if it's pervading everything, it has to pervade the negative as well. So you see the all-pervasiveness of the Lord. Now, what prevents us from seeing the all-pervasiveness of the Lord is our desires, right? So when we have desires and those desires are not fulfilled, we call those things what do we call those things?
Agitation.
Sour. You
Vasanas.
don't want them. Vasanas.
Vasanas.
I'm not saying what do you call desire. I'm saying you have a desire and the desire is not fulfilled. You call those things
Problems. Not interested in them.
Papa.
You call those things negative. Isn't it? What is negative and what is positive? When a volcano erupts, islands, beautiful islands are formed. So why are you saying negative? The volcano is negative, isn't it? That the whole archipelagos and all are formed because of the eruption of the volcanoes. This fiery thing has created this beautiful thing. A lot of these tabletops are formed when the volcano erupts in an icy glacier or something. And you get that tabletop look. And then we take those pictures and Microsoft also puts it on the, what do you call? When you put it on your screen, it puts all these pretty pictures of all these wonderful things. And yet we call them negative. Why do we call it negative? Why do we call a volcano negative?
Because it destroys what we have.
Because it's interrupting our desires. So what is negative? Only that which interrupts my desires is negative. Kalyan, are you with me so far?
Yes.
Right? The Lord is all pervading. We are not able to see the all pervasiveness of the Lord because of our desires. When we have desires, we call things negative. What he's saying is there's no such thing. There is no negative. There is no negative unless you have desires. Otherwise, where's negative? The whole thing is blessed. The whole thing is the Lord. So how do you reconcile it? By simply understanding that if I'm thinking something is bad, it's only because my desire is interrupted. And that's not the lane down which I wish to go. I wish to go down the lane where even though things are not happening the way I would like it to be, I can still feel the sense of the Lord. You know, we know this couple. Sorry, I give you personal examples, but now where or what else to say, tell you. You know this couple. They're very nice people, but they're quite rude. I mean, they're the two of them, both of them together. I must be among the rudest people I have met. I mean, they almost seem to have no concept of what you can say to people and what you cannot say to people. It's very rude. I mean, like when you talk to them, you go, you know, like, how can you talk to me like that? Now, they have managed to fight with everybody, including between each other also they fight because they are so rude. You can't talk to people like that. So they fought with parents, they fought with siblings, they fought with building people, they fought with friends, fought with everybody. Now the tragedy of this is they're actually good people. They just don't know what to speak and what not to speak. You know, their only fault lies there. Otherwise, they're really good, nice people. Now, nobody is seeing the fact that they're good, nice people. They just don't seem to have a sense of what can be said and what cannot be said. So, we as Vedanta, what is our role? Can we see that goodness or not? Are we going to be like everybody else who sees their rudeness? Or are we going to be those people who would like to see their goodness, even when they're irritating the hell out of us? So similarly, when we see negative in the world, are we able to see the divinity, the truth, the reality? Or are we just going to go with, oh, this is not, I don't feel nice. Okay.
Sorry, just one thing, Janki. So I can understand that when you say the property of pervasiveness, you associate with reality. That I have understood. But when you're attributing the facet of things like realizing, that's what we are on the path for, let's say, then you say those negatives are also there and we're going to realize those negatives. So is that is not what is speaking, I mean.
No, we're not going to realize those negatives. We are going to look beyond those so-called negatives. We are going to look beyond the good and the bad into the truth. Good and bad is what I feel. So I'm going to look beyond this into the facts, into the reality. There is no good and bad in reality. The reality lies beyond it.
Yeah.
Is that clear or not?
Yeah, I'm reasonably clear.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So so you're married, right? So you will get irritated with your wife and your wife will get irritated with you. One day you will say, I want the window open. She will say, I want the window closed. Then you people will fight over whether the window should be open or closed. This is normal married life going on, right? So you're very irritated with your spouse or this. All the time they fuss me. Don't let me open the window or don't let me close the window and I will grumble. But beyond all that grumbling, you still know, right, that this is my spouse, that I am with this person for the rest of my life, that we are really on this journey together. You're able to see beyond that immediate feeling. So same thing you do in the spiritual path. You look beyond your immediate feeling into the truth.
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the symbolism given by Lakshmi and Kubera can also be seen as, while reconciling the fact that about God and reality, can that symbolism be used by saying that is your attitude which shows your negative and your positive?
Yes, that's what the point is. Not also, that is the point, that
Okay.
what makes the difference between a Kubera and a Lakshmi is only your attitude. Are you a Kubera or are you a Lakshmi?
Okay.
Because,
Similar to
and
the-
they show it very visually because, Lakshmi is this beautiful thing. And Kubera is shown so ugly. It's like, Arey Baba, why do you have to show such an ugly person? So it's shown visually to sort of show us the kind of people we become with the kinds of attitudes we have.
So actually, there is no negativity or positivity.
There isn't.
Okay.
Everything is a matter of the attitude.
Okay. Thank you.
Jankiji, can one look at it this way, to Kalyan's question, that the pairs of opposite cease to exist when one realizes the self, and in that sense, there is no negativity or positivity. I mean, instead of thinking in terms of also embracing negativity, self-realization is when there is nothing like a positive or a negative. There are no pairs of opposites.
Isn't that what I just said? What did
Oh,
you
you said
think
it.
I just said? Yeah, you are using the correct technical terminology, which I'm sure Kalyan knows. The thing about this knowledge is that we get so used to the words sometimes that by saying those words, we no longer get the message. So therefore, just change the words, but the point stays the same.
So, did I understand you wrong when you said that even in the negative, the all-pervading reality is there? Is it the same as?
Correct.
Is it the same as saying there are no pairs of opposites?
Yes, yes, it is. There are no pairs of opposites me is the same as saying, look beyond the pairs of opposites into the reality. It's the same concept.
Okay.
It's not a different concept. It's the same concept. One way of looking at it is by saying that there is no good and bad. Okay? If you take that stance, you're really talking from the fourth state of consciousness, that there is no good and bad. But you can't really take that stance in this verse because he's saying, I am Viktesha among the Yakshas and Rakshasas. So you take the same stance, but from the third plane of consciousness, which says, beyond what you see is the reality. But it's really the same thing.
You rise above all these opposites to realize the self.
Sorry?
You rise above these opposites to realize the self.
Correct. You see beyond them. You know that there is a truth beyond what you're. And as of now, you go with your intellect. Okay, as of now. Just like the examples, like, that rude couple, can you go beyond their rudeness and see they're nice people? When you fight with your spouse, can you go beyond that fight and see that it is my spouse? And, this person is really the person who really takes care of me and who I am dedicated to taking care of. And I do all this stuff. If I can't, then I get carried away by that moment of fight. So similarly, in this world, when something negative happens, positive happens, can I look beyond it into the divinity? So rise above it, look beyond it. It doesn't exist. It's all different phraseologies of the same thing.
Yeah, now it's made sense, yes.
You're okay, Omkar?
Yes.
I mean, you can say it's different if you like. If you want to make a difference, you can say one is from the third plane, one is from the fourth plane. You could say that, I suppose. But it's the same basic concept.
I just thought that till such time that one is realized, one sees the pairs of opposites but chooses to ignore them, or maybe, the intellect is so developed that one can see it but ignore it, whereas when one is realized, there is no pairs of opposites, and there is a difference between the two.
Yes, you're right. Except in the first case, you're not ignoring it. You will deal with it as need be. But the more important point is that when you are realized, when you're using that phraseology, you're not talking from the fourth plane of consciousness, because from the fourth plane of consciousness, there was never a time you were not realized.
Yes.
So you have to decide where you're speaking from. As far as the self is concerned, there is no world. So there is no world. Where is the ignorance? There is no ignorance, and there is na bandham, na moksha, na bandham. Remember, Shankaracharya says in that Mano Buddha
Nirvana Shatakam.
Nirvana Shatakam. Yes, remember that line? Na bandha, na moksha. There is no bandha, there is no moksha. The concept of moksha arises only when there is bandha. The concept of liberation can only exist if there is bondage. So we can't, I mean, there's no point talking of that. It's not in this context. I think we've got, is anybody new? Because if anybody is new, they'll be told. Looks like all familiar names. So, anyway, in May, nobody's going to come and attend our classes. So, okay, can we move on? You're all okay with this? Give me some kind of thumbs up or something. Unless you have a question. If you have questions, switch on your video. So I know you have a question.
Yes, yes.
Okay, let's go ahead. Thank you. Of Vasus and Pavaka. These Vasus are the, this kind of thing. If you are into mythology, you shouldn't call it mythology nowadays. If you're into the traditional stories of India, then you will love this chapter, because it gives you the potential to talk of all the stories. You know the Vasus, you know the story of the Vasus?
No,
The
ma'am.
most
No,
famous-
Janki, ma'am, I don't.
No.
No, we
The
don't.
most famous story everybody knows, come on. Y'all are just not connecting it. The most famous story of the Vasus.
Vasudev.
Huh?
Vasudev Krishna.
No.
Okay.
That is a different connotation. Vasus, come on. There were 8 Vasus. Then what happened?
Yeah. About the cow, when they stole the cow in the Mahabharata.
Go ahead, tell us the story.
They stole the cow
Oh,
and they were
Shantanu.
cursed.
Shantanu married.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait. I don't know if I'm not
So
hearing you. Okay, so
Shantanu
this-
married Ganga. Shantanu married Ganga, and
Correct.
she's told him that you will not ask me what I do about our sons. And she was throwing all of them as soon as they were born. She was throwing them into the water, Ganga. And then the last one, Shantanu could not digest what is happening to his sons, and he could not control his urge to ask her that, what are you doing? Why are you throwing our sons into the water? And that's when the last one is Bhishma.
Very good. You all know that everybody knows the story, right? So you didn't start at the beginning. What did they do? Why?
They had
Not Vishwan.
Huh?
they had
Something wrong.
stolen that Kamadhenu cow,
And then?
and so the rishi got angry and cursed them.
Right. But
And
then?
the one who had actually stolen is the one who became Bhishma. The others were like, when he wanted to take back the curse, he couldn't. So he said, okay, you will be born, but you will die immediately and go back to your realized state.
See, you all knew the story, no? So there were these 8 Vasus. They were naughty boys. So they went and irritated the sage. And then the sage cursed them. And then they went asked for forgiveness. So the sage said, okay, you're forgiven. But the main guy who did this thing, he will have to bear his life on earth. And that is how he was born as He was born as?
Bhishma.
No, he was not born as Bhishma. He was born as?
Ganga Putra.
Okay, what was his name?
Karan.
No.
No.
Devrat.
Correct. Devavrata, right? Devavrata, right? Devavrata, yeah. No, Devavrata. You're confusing me now. Anyway, you can all read the stories. These are all, there is an ocean of stories over here. There are so many stories that there's no way we'll have to write an encyclopedia if you have to know all the stories. But this is the most famous story about the Vasus. The Vasus are supposed to be the demigods like Thara and all of that, Thara, Thati, all of these. They're supposed to be the demigods of their ruler is Pavaka. Their head is Pavaka. Pavaka is the fire god. And I am sure you are familiar with the idea that fire is considered to be the mouth of the gods. And why is it mouth of the gods? Because don't you put your oblations in him, right? And they're supposed to reach the god. When you do the Havan, you put all your oblation in it. And they are supposed to reach God, no? So it's the mouth of the god. You're feeding the god when you're doing that. And this is a very, very powerful symbolism, apparently, because it is across cultures. Even in English, you have the association of fire with your mouth, isn't it? You say he spoke hot words, fiery tongue. You say all these things. So there seems to be this this association, a heated argument, a lot of association of fire with the mouth. The point being that there are 8 Vasus. The lord of these Vasus is Pavaka, the fire god. And these are the 8 demigods, or this is the little lower level gods. Of mountains, I am Meru. Meru, as you know, is the mythological center of this universe. It's supposed to be the highest mountain, made of gold, and it's supposed to be the king of all the mountains. It's supposed to be the center of this universe. Okay, so I mean, if you're truly into stories, you can make a lot of this chapter, but the point will always remain. What is the point in this? Please don't forget it in all these stories. What is the point?
Reality
is in both the negativity and positivity.
Yeah, that reality is the essence of everything. Okay, so the highest, the best, noblest he's showing to show the essence of it. Was Malti switched on your video? You have a question?
No. I think I was.
Urodhasam chamukyam mam Vithi partha bruhaspatim Senani namaham skandaha Sarasamasmi sagaraha Urodhasam chamukyam mam Vithi partha bruhaspatim Senani namaham skandaha Sarasamasmi sagaraha. Purodhasam. Among the Purohits. Mukhyam. I am the chief. Who is the chief of all the Purohits? Bruhaspati. Why is he the Bruhaspati? Why is he the chief of all household priests? Because he is the household priest of the
Devas.
Of the Devas, of the gods. So he is the head of all the priests. In other words, he is supposed to be, the word Pandit comes from the word Panda. Panda means Buddhi, intellect. So he is the most intelligent, most wise amongst all the Purohits. And therefore he is the priest to the gods. I am Bruhaspati. You know that, no? Even in normal language also, no? We say, oh, what do you think? You're a big Bruhaspati. Means you think you're so smart. So Bruhaspati is the chief, the highest intellect. of generals and skanda. Senani nam aham skandaha. Skandaha is who? Come on, y'all know all this stuff. Kartikeya, correct. Everybody knows this, right? Is anybody unfamiliar with these stories? You know the story of Kartikeya? The story goes that there was this horrible demon and he was troubling all the gods. And so, okay. So, there are so many stories, Priya. We can go on forever with this chapter. Everybody, you know, he is referencing it to things that Arjuna already knows. So he just needs to know. It's like, suppose I say that, you know, among actors, I'm Amitabh Bachchan. Now, suppose we say that. Now, 500 years later, after they've forgotten Amitabh Bachchan, they will have to have a whole story, right? So why was Amitabh Bachchan used and why not somebody else? Among Shakespearean actors, I am Sir Laurence Olivier. Then now you'll have to go into the whole story of why Sir Laurence Olivier. So it's something like that. So basically, in olden times, you didn't come to Vedanta directly as we do now. So what happened in our traditional system of education is, as a child, you learned all the stories. Then as you came into adult life, you learned Nyaya. Nyaya means the systems of logic. So you had the stories, you had been taught how to think, and then you came to Vedanta. Because of this inversion now, we come to Vedanta, then we go back and learn stories, then we try to learn how to think. It's a bit confused. So we have to go step by step. First, everybody has to learn all the stories. So if people keep asking, what will we do for children? What do you do for children? Simplest, easiest, best thing is buy Amar Chitra Katha. Let them just read the story. That's how it was done. Oh, the grannies would tell the stories to the children and all that sort of thing. Then the children would grow up. They would learn Nyaya. They would learn logic. Then they would say, what stupid stories are these? Then they would come to Vedanta, put the stories and the Nyaya together and understand, oh my God, it's talking another thing altogether. And that feeling of, oh my God, I didn't realize this, is one of the nicer feelings in the study of philosophy. So coming back to Mr. Skanda, our friend Skanda is Kartikeya, the son of Shiva and Parvati. Now, the story of Shiva and Parvati is very long, as you know. So it starts, where do we start the story from? Let's start with the death of Sati. Sati has died now. Shiva's wife, Sati, has died because of the insults, whatever, she's dead now. And Shiva has gone into tapasya. He's gone to the mountains, he's closed his eyes and he's gone into meditation. Okay. Now Sati is born as Parvati. Why Parvati? Because she is the daughter of the Parvat. Remember the etymology? Parvat, the daughter of Parvat has to become, because of etymology. You know all this, come on. Parvati.
Parvati.
Yeah, the T is added because daughter. So Parvat's daughter is, Parvat's child is Parvat, and because it's a female child, it is Parvati. So she is born as Parvati. And it is time for her to get married. And she's this wonderful, beautiful person. And it's time for her to get married. On another side, there is this horrible demon who is not on the other side, much before this. There's this horrible demon. And the gods have got terrified with this demon. So they've run to Vishnu and said, please protect Vishnu or Brahma, somebody, and please protect us. And so the bar they received was from whichever god they went to, is that the child of Shiva and Parvati will kill that demon, Tarak. What was his name? Tarakasura, right? So he'll kill that demon. Now this Shiva has gone into tapasya. Parvati is ready to be married. So, like, what to do? How are they to get these two to meet each other also? So Narada has to go and tell the father that the best groom for Parvati is Shiva. But they are not interested in marrying their beautiful daughter to that mendicant Shiva, right? But Parvati is determined that she will marry Shiva. And then she dresses up very beautifully and she goes and does tapasya with him and she keeps on offering him, takes care of him and all while he's doing his meditation. But he is in meditation, he's not bothered with any beautiful girl doing all this stuff. Okay, he brought me fruit, he ate the fruit and he closed his eyes again. He's not least bothered. So again, the gods are very frightened. They're saying, what to do over here? This fellow is not getting out of his meditation only. So they sent down Kamadeva and sent with him Vasanta, and these two came down. What is that? Kamadeva, the desire, and Vasanta, spring, a conducive environment. The environment very conducive, desire is planted, and then Parvati, this beautiful Parvati, comes and gives her oblations to Shiva. Shiva opens his eyes, and suddenly she's no longer somebody leaving fruits there. She is very attractive to him. And he, what happened over here? How did my meditation get bung like this? So he realizes, oh, desire has come. He burns, come. He opens his third eye and Kamdeva is burnt. And again he closes his eyes. And Parvati is forgotten. And then Parvati is like, what is she to do? Poor thing now. She loves Shiva, but Shiva is not looking at her. So she decides that my beauty, my wealth, my stature is all useless to get Shiva. I will do tapasya. So she goes into the forest and she lives without food, without, she stands on one foot, she becomes, she loses all her beauty because, she's putting herself through so much rigorous exercise to obtain Shiva. And when her mother sees her, she's shocked. What happened to my girl, my beautiful princess? What are you? Are like some mendicant, like no, none of the beauty, no, none of the jewelry, none of the beauty, none of the brightness of youth. She looks at her daughter and she says, oh, Ma. Oh, Ma means stop. Don't do this. Why are you torturing yourself like that? Ooh is like a like that. And Ma is stop. So, oh, stop. That is why Parvati's name at that time becomes Uma. Because her mother said, oh, Ma, stop. Don't do this. But she doesn't listen and she continues starving herself and all of this stuff. And because she doesn't eat any food, she gets called Aparna. Not eating any food, she's starving herself to death. And one day a little Batu comes there. Batu means a dwarf. And then the Batu says, what's wrong with you? Why are you becoming like this? What is it? Shiva he sits in the cremation ground and he's covered with ash and skulls and he has a serpent around his neck. How can you be interested in that horrible thing? Exactly like people might tell us about Vedanta. How can we be interested in that? So boring. They're sitting in a skull. They're sitting in a Shamshan Bhumi wearing skulls as his ornament and snakes. So how horrible is that? And so she just gets up and moves. She doesn't want to hear all this stuff. But he follows her and he keeps criticizing Shiva. And then she gets very angry and she is about to curse him. And she says, I can't bear to hear this. And she moves to go away. And the Batu holds her hand. And she gets so angry. How dare a Batu come? Batu means a little dwarf. Hold her hand like that. Turns around in anger. And who was standing there? But Shiva himself, who was now propitiated by all that worship. and has come. Okay, so finally now they get married, and then they are in, then they're having a very good time, and having, okay, they're very happy with each other, but they're not having a child. No good news. So again, the gods went running to Brahma or whoever it was, and said they're not having a child. And so, well, Brahma had to again intervene, and this story goes that, he had to, Skanda was born in the river with 6 heads. That's why he's called Shanmukha. And he was looked after by 6 maidens there. So that's where that Shanmukha name comes from. And finally he is born, and then eventually he grows up and he leads the Devas against the battle of Tarakasura and wins. So that's the story. Long story. Okay, so he's the highest general because he's the general of the Devas who defeated Tarakasura. So among generals, I am Tarakasura. Really, we went into all these stories. I don't know when we'll ever finish this text. Okay, so that's it for today. Now from next Sunday, we have no class. Correct, Bharat? No class, right? Next Sunday?